The world is on high alert. Tensions are rising across continents, and the sense of unease is palpable in every major capital. From the corridors of power in Washington and Moscow to the bustling streets of Tehran, leaders and citizens alike are bracing for what could be a turning point in modern history. A new United Nations report has sent shockwaves through the international community, warning that Iran is just weeks away from amassing enough enriched uranium for a nuclear weapon. The findings are more alarming than previous assessments, and the world is watching with growing anxiety. The balance of power in the Middle East is at risk, threatening decades of non-proliferation and raising fears of a regional arms race. Neighboring countries are on edge, with military forces on heightened alert and diplomatic channels buzzing with urgent messages. The International Atomic Energy Agency has revealed that Iran's nuclear program has accelerated beyond previous estimates, both in speed and sophistication. Inspectors have documented advanced centrifuges and increased stockpiles, painting a picture of a program moving rapidly toward weapons capability. Years of diplomacy, economic sanctions, and covert actions have failed to halt Iran's progress. Despite international pressure and secret operations, Tehran has continued to push forward, undeterred by threats or isolation. Now the question is not if Iran can build a bomb, but when and how the world will respond. The stakes have never been higher, and the margin for error is razor thin. Emergency meetings are underway at the highest levels. Leaders are scrambling to address a crisis that could reshape global security, with diplomats working around the clock to find a solution before time runs out. A nuclear-armed Iran would embolden Tehran and its proxies, forcing rivals like Saudi Arabia and Israel to reconsider their own nuclear options. The risk of a new arms race in the world's most volatile region is real and immediate. The fear is a domino effect of proliferation, with more nations seeking nuclear weapons, and the world becoming far more dangerous. The specter of nuclear conflict, once thought to be a relic of the Cold War, is now back at the forefront of global concerns. To understand this moment, we must look back at broken agreements, military actions, and Iran's relentless pursuit of nuclear capability. The collapse of past deals and the failure of enforcement have brought us to this critical juncture. The current crisis is the result of years of mistrust and missed opportunities, a prologue to an uncertain future. As the world stands on edge, the choices made in the coming weeks will shape the course of history for generations to come. The IAEA's latest warning is clear. Despite recent military strikes, Iran's nuclear program remains resilient and more advanced than ever. Key facilities, especially underground sites like Fordo, continue to operate with new, efficient centrifuges. The strikes damaged some infrastructure, but Iran's core capabilities survived, protected by years of strategic fortification. Western and Israeli planners now question whether military force alone can stop Iran's ambitions. The program has proven adaptable. Cut off one part and another emerges stronger. Iran retains the scientists, technology, and materials to move forward. The world faces the reality that military action has not stopped Iran, but may have only delayed the inevitable. The nuclear threat is now more immediate and complex than ever. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA, was a landmark agreement designed to curb Iran's nuclear ambitions. Through a series of strict limits and rigorous international inspections, the deal aimed to ensure that Iran's nuclear program would remain peaceful and transparent, preventing the development of nuclear weapons. In return for these unprecedented restrictions, Iran received significant relief from crippling international sanctions. This opened a path for the country to rejoin the global economy, allowing Iranian oil exports to resume, foreign investments to flow in, and everyday life in Iran to slowly improve as businesses and markets revived. For a time, the deal worked as intended. Iran's uranium stockpile was dramatically reduced, advanced centrifuges were dismantled or placed under seal, and international inspectors from the IAEA had unprecedented round-the-clock access to nuclear facilities. The world watched as Iran's nuclear program was brought under tight control, and hopes for long-term stability grew. But in 2018, everything changed. The United States, under President Donald Trump, unilaterally withdrew from the agreement, reimposing harsh sanctions and launching a so-called maximum pressure campaign against Iran. This move sent shockwaves through the international community and upended years of delicate diplomacy. Other signatories, including European powers, scrambled to salvage the deal and keep diplomatic channels open. But as Iran's economy once again buckled under renewed sanctions, the country began to breach its commitments step by step in protest and desperation. Gradually, Iran increased its uranium enrichment levels, installed new generations of advanced centrifuges, and rebuilt its nuclear stockpile. Each step marked a further departure from the original agreement, raising alarm among world powers. With every move, Iran sent a clear message. Without the promised economic benefits, it would no longer honor the nuclear restrictions. The trust that had been built through years of negotiation began to unravel. The collapse of the JCPOA effectively removed the last meaningful barriers to Iran's nuclear expansion, leaving the international community with few options to contain the crisis. Today, the world faces a renewed nuclear crisis. Global leaders express deep concern and emergency meetings are held, but the diplomatic breakdown has left the situation more volatile than ever. The consequences of a deal undone are now being felt across the globe as the world grapples with the fallout of lost trust and rising nuclear tensions. After the JCPOA's collapse, covert attacks and open strikes targeted Iran's nuclear infrastructure. Facilities were bombed, scientists assassinated, and cyber attacks launched, all aiming to cripple Iran's program. While some surface sites were destroyed, Iran's most sensitive work continued deep underground in fortified bunkers like Natanz and Fordo. The strikes failed to eliminate Iran's core enrichment capabilities. Iran's strategy of redundancy and fortification paid off. Advanced centrifuges remain operational. For every destroyed workshop, another emerged. The expertise of Iran's scientists cannot be bombed away. Some argue the attacks only hardened Iran's resolve, accelerating its nuclear efforts and reducing transparency. The most dangerous parts of the program, uranium enrichment and weaponization potential, survived the fire. The latest UN report has sounded a global alarm, revealing that Iran's stockpile of enriched uranium has reached unprecedented levels. The country now possesses several thousand kilograms of enriched uranium, far surpassing the limits set by the 2015 nuclear deal, known as the JCPOA. This dramatic increase has raised serious concerns among international observers and nuclear experts alike, as it marks a significant departure from previous agreements and understandings. What's even more troubling is that a substantial portion of this uranium is enriched to 60% purity. This level is alarmingly close to the 90% threshold required for weapons-grade material, meaning Iran is now just a short technical step away from having the capability to produce a nuclear weapon. Nuclear experts warn that with its current stockpile, Iran could potentially assemble enough fissile material for a nuclear bomb in a matter of weeks if it made the decision to do so. This rapid timeline has dramatically shortened the so-called breakout time, leaving the world with far less opportunity to detect and respond to any sudden moves. The swift accumulation of highly enriched uranium has effectively erased the buffer period that once provided a crucial window for international monitoring and diplomatic intervention. Now the margin for error is razor thin, and the stakes are higher than ever. At this point, the only real barrier preventing Iran from building a nuclear weapon is a political decision by its leadership. The technical hurdles have largely been overcome, shifting the focus to the intentions of Iran's top officials. Making matters worse, Iran has sharply reduced its cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency. Inspectors have been denied access to key sites, and surveillance cameras have been removed, further obscuring the true state of Iran's nuclear program. As a result, the international community is increasingly left in the dark, unable to verify Iran's activities or intentions with any certainty. This lack of transparency only heightens global anxiety and suspicion. The combination of a rapidly growing high-purity uranium stockpile and decreasing international oversight is a volatile mix. It creates a situation ripe for misunderstanding, miscalculation, and potential conflict. With so much uncertainty, world leaders are left to guess Iran's true capabilities and intentions. This ambiguity is not just unsettling, it's dangerous, as it increases the risk of hasty or ill-informed decisions on the global stage. In this climate of heightened tension and limited information, the risk of miscalculation or unintended escalation has never been higher, putting regional and global security on a knife's edge. The IAEA report has triggered urgent responses worldwide. The US warns that all options are on the table, while pushing for a diplomatic solution. In Tehran, leaders insist their program is peaceful, and blamed the US for the crisis, vowing swift retaliation against any attack. The United Nations calls for restraint and a return to dialogue, stressing that only diplomacy can resolve the crisis. The IEA, caught in the middle, pleads for more access and transparency, warning it can no longer guarantee the program is peaceful. The agency's role as impartial arbiter is more vital and more challenged than ever. The world looks to the IAEA for answers, but its hands are tied by political deadlock. The risk of escalation grows as trust erodes on all sides. Beyond known stockpiles, the IEA has found unexplained uranium particles at undeclared sites in Iran. Iran's refusal to explain these findings raises doubts about the completeness of its nuclear disclosures. The fear, a hidden, parallel program may exist, undermining any future agreement. The IEEA's efforts to investigate have been stonewalled, deepening mistrust and leading to international censure. Without answers, inspectors cannot verify Iran's claims or ensure no illicit work continues. This unresolved mystery threatens the foundation of any new deal. Until Iran comes clean, the world will suspect it is hiding more than it admits. With Iran on the nuclear threshold, the world races to revive diplomacy. The US and Europe seek to lure Iran back to talks, offering limited relief for immediate de-escalation. But trust is shattered. Iran demands guarantees the US cannot easily provide, while the West insists on tougher, longer-lasting restrictions. Bridging this divide will be extraordinarily difficult. Robust IEA inspections are non-negotiable for any deal, but Iran sees them as a major concession. If diplomacy fails, the alternatives are grim: accept a nuclear Iran or risk a major war. Either path could destabilize the region and trigger a nuclear arms race. The stakes for global security could not be higher. The Iran nuclear crisis is a defining test for global non-proliferation and diplomacy. The technical path to a bomb is now dangerously short, and decisions made now will shape global security for generations. The collapse of the JCPOA has led to unchecked nuclear expansion and rising tensions. Restoring stability demands political will, dialogue, and a credible diplomatic track. Iran must halt its nuclear advances and restore IEA cooperation. World powers must offer a path out of isolation in exchange for real constraints. The IAEA's ability to monitor is essential. Without it, trust is impossible. At stake is the principle of collective security that has underpinned the world order for decades. Failure to resolve this crisis peacefully would destabilize the Middle East and undermine global efforts to prevent nuclear proliferation. The world is watching, hoping for wisdom and restraint as the countdown continues.